Open the pod bay doors, Cal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
He's gonna leave us though in the next
I'm
year.
not leaving you.
You're leaving us.
You're gonna Skype in? Get like
We'd fix something.
Yeah. Skype in. Or we're just gonna get I want to get a good like full-size picture of you.
Yeah.
let's just put a cardboard cutout, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be living on a farm.
Did you already find a
Wait,
place
what?
to
You're
live?
living on a
Well,
farm?
the potential place right now is that there's a 75-year-old lady who wants to rent out her basement. And
Help
there's
you find
no
these people.
contract. I'm kind of scared. So we need like a code word in case I just disappear.
Is this like
This
a
sounds
shroot
like a horror
farm?
film.
It's a start of a horror film.
It's like a shroot farm
Yeah.
situation. You'll
Yeah.
be farming
So-
beets.
That's my mind. I mean, she sounds like a totally nice lady, and it's going to be a nice place. It's just I've never been there before, and I don't know what I'm getting into. So I'm just
So what
my
do you
mind
do?
will create those fill in the
You just
gaps.
called her and said, "Hi, I'm moving up, and
Yeah.
I heard you had a rental."
Yeah. She said I'll call you back on September 2nd. And we'll figure out here.
To be T for a day.
And it was on
I
Craigslist.
mean, honestly.
Of all places. It was
Of
on-
course it was on Craigslist.
Yeah, it was.
Just don't get scammed by an old
I know.
lady.
Well, she asked for like a deposit, then I'll be cautious. But
If she asks you to go to Walmart
Uh-huh.
and get a what is it, like a cashier's check? And
I've
send her-
already fallen for that, so I don't do anything.
So have I.
I'm not going to do that again.
You're too trustworthy.
Fool me once.
Fool me once,
Was it?
shame on you.
Yeah.
Fool me twice.
Fool me twice,
I love you, George.
then you fooled
I
me.
love you, George.
Or whatever he says. I don't know.
Oh, God, T. Well, if nothing else,
If
it'll
anything,
inspire
it's-
some writing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think stepping outside of your comfort zone is part of, I think, the journey that like writers have to take. You have to take risks. So
And what are you going to be doing there?
writing.
What are you going to be teaching?
So I
So
will
you
be
can
teaching
guide your students
production-
to our podcast.
production, and I will be teaching corporate video production and film theory.
Okay.
So all three of them, I think I can, for extra credit. I don't know if you can give extra credit, but
You have to
I
listen
don't
to
know
the
who
podcast.
you are, but thank you for listening.
You have to listen to the podcast and write a
Yes.
250-word essay, which is basically two paragraphs.
True.
Well, we should come up and guest
Yes, you're
and
welcome.
guest
Please come speak.
lecture.
You can't tell any Todd stories because I've got a clean slate up there.
Fair enough. Since it's all fresh in our mind, because I finished mine on lunch break today, watching the French film. Now I can't even remember the name of it.
You're the
Jules-
worst.
and
You're
Jules
about
and
the
Jim.
worst intro.
I know.
Every time. You just blow it. You got to at least know the name of the damn film.
We're talking about a film today. It's
I watched
it's a French
it.
film.
It's a French film.
About
I
a
watched
threesome.
it. I
I'll
watched
lump
it.
There's only a
into
few.
the- Yeah.
There's only a few French films.
There's
that
only
have
thousands of
a
French
threesome.
films.
About threesomes.
one or two.
Jules and Jim.
And
Jules and Jim.
yes.
And I think we could kind of we actually kind of assigned ourselves to watch two movies. And what's interesting, and me and T were talking about it in the parking lot, was funny. Me and T were watching a menage a trois scene in the parking lot as people were coming out on my iPhone. Now, keep in mind, it's not nudity. It's just insinuated.
Yeah.
But still, it was kind of funny. But I think the point being is we watched another movie called Sex, Lies, and Videotape by Steven Soderbergh. And it's kind of an interesting contrast. We could kind of just combine the two into one
That's true.
simultaneous discussion because you're talking about relationships and, in this case, threesomes or even foursomes or however it works into it.
Tragic love.
Tragic love.
Batshit crazy females.
So you finished it today.
It's not Gone Girl, but it's tragic.
No.
It's what are your thoughts on it, Brandon?
Well, I just want to kind of talk about the cinematography of the time. It really seemed like it was really ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Starting with the Jules and Jim. Just kind of some of the interesting things he did with the. I was trying to think of a couple of examples. Just I just kind of like how he integrated. I mean, what we'd call today stock footage, really, of some of the wars and stuff like that. Like, didn't care that it didn't fill the screen. Like, it was kind of like that realism when he was for the war scenes, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of all of a sudden it kind of cropped in a little bit, and you could see like the reels on the side. So he wasn't trying to. I mean, because that was obviously real footage.
Yeah, that's real.
That's
World
real
War I footage.
World War I footage, and nowadays
and like
we
you
try
said,
to
it's apparent that it's war footage. It's not recreated.
It's not recreated.
Yeah.
It's absolutely real, and so I just thought it was kind of interesting that back then it didn't really matter, and I liked that it was real footage as opposed to some recreations. I just thought it was an interesting side aspect of it, but I mean, just the length of time that spanned in this film, starting in the early days with Paris, and I mean, it just in a short amount of time, because I think the film was like an hour and 45 minutes, maybe something in that neighborhood. I mean, it went through an entire lifetime, really, almost. Not an entire lifetime, but a good portion of the lifetime, and just it went a lot of directions. They're worried at war. They're worried about killing each other, and like this bond of friendship that's one of the stronger friendships of all time. Because I mean, they're banging the same people, and they're just having casual conversations. Like, okay, yeah, my wife's gonna leave me, and if you're gonna take over, well,
She's gonna take over.
this is
Here's
some pointers,
in and out of the bedroom.
Yeah,
You're in charge.
And just like, hey, I'm gonna hook up with my old husband up here. That didn't go so well, so I'm just gonna. She's not gonna do that again. But she was really interesting. She had a really interesting, and it was almost kind of a throwaway line, but to kind of understand her character, she was talking. It was right after Jim had come back after a little bit of, and like after the war. And she was kind of explaining where her mind was and her infidelity and all of that sort of thing. And he said, I understand. And she says, I don't want to be understood. I thought that was a very interesting of what she doesn't want to be understood. And I think that kind of clicked for me, like understanding her character throughout her entire really weird arc. But I mean, I just thought that was an interesting.
I think she's the first model for independent woman. I mean, this is a person who really decides what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
There's no external influence.
Mm-hmm.
She is who she is. She's proud of it in the sense that she doesn't really care what everybody thinks.
No,
like you said, and that statement really kind of helps sum it up. I think it's very forward thinking based on the time, because the movie's made in 1960. So her position in 1960 amongst the males,
mm-hmm.
the men in the story, she's definitely the dominant figure amongst all the other characters. So it's almost forward thinking in the way that the story is set up.
So much so that she proudly dresses as a man and gets a mustache and goes out and she wants to see if
was she trying to imitate Napoleon, or was it hit? What was it? Because it had the little
short mustache. Yeah.
And it was in the era, and I was trying to figure out, because then one of the lines that I found was interesting that I thought was comical almost was when they're talking. So you got Jules, you got Jim, and then Catherine, and it's just the three of them talking. And she's the two guys are kind of next to each other, and she's kind of in the back, and she starts telling him about a dream that she had that.
Oh, that's right.
Napoleon had a crush on her and knocked her up.
Yeah, that's right.
So she had Napoleon's baby, and I just found it comical. And then so anyway, the tie-in is like, was she dressed as somebody of significance historically, or was she just?
It wouldn't have been Hitler. That would have been pre-Hitler. Yeah.
But now the film goes up to that
Hitler
point because it goes pre-World War I, or at least a few years before, and then it leads up to. They're talking about
World
burning
War
books in Germany.
So at least the rise of the Nazi
So it's the
Party,
rise of World War II. So it's spanning and I'm not a historian, but that's 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So in that case, it wouldn't have been Hitler, but it must have just been some guy that she was dressing up as. But she was confident in it. She didn't care.
But what's interesting is the Jules and Jim, they show all the relationships that these guys have. because they're like college buddies or players, you know.
Yeah.
And they're the girls they date, you know, they prostitute, whatever, whoever. They're not interesting to them because they're not free thinking like Catherine is.
Yeah.
And so when Catherine comes in, she's the challenge to these guys, and that's what their draw and why they like her so much. I think is because they can't figure her out. They only can love her for who she is and what she does. And she does crazy things, but they still love her regardless. She has that, and you know they allude to this mythical, you know, muse who can tempt. This, you know. And that's the thing that's mythical because she can say what she wants, does what she wants, and has this alluring power over these guys, which again is very forward thinking in that time period. Which is, I mean, you feel like that was this is a modern day piece, but they were really, you know, thinking ahead of the time.
It was almost a precursor to a femme fatale in some ways, not necessarily that directly, but just kind of the little hints of that. I mean, she like pulls the gun on him and you know, I thought he was a goner right then. Yeah. Because she just snapped all of a sudden.
That's the other thing. She seemed a bit schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Or unstable.
Well, to the very end. No spoiler alerts. You're going to hear about the ending, but you know, she to the very end.
Well, it came out in '66.
What was the deal with the gun pull anyway? What was the motivation behind that?
I feel like it felt.
I mean, it was like it was super aggressive. All of a sudden, was she angry at him? Was she angry at Jim when she pulled the gun, or was it? Was it just more out of I'm crazy as a person? I do what I want.
I'm crazy. I do what I want.
It wasn't necessarily directed at him per se, right? I didn't think it was. I couldn't tell.
I think it was more of a frustration at the situation. And I think she just.
I mean, nonetheless, you pull a gun on somebody, so it doesn't. I guess the motivation is almost irrelevant because you pointed a gun at somebody.
I just love this, like, and he jumps out of the window, runs away. A few months later, like,
well, doesn't he disarm her?
Yeah, he disarms her,
and then jumps out the window and runs off. So he's like, you know, who had? Because I almost wondered, and so like,
because he said he bought. Jules had said that she had bought a gun.
Yeah.
And then had toyed around with suicide and mentioned other things. It's like, hey, so-and-so committed suicide. What do you think about that? You know? So she definitely had it handy.
There's some instability there. And then on top of that, the gun, of course, insinuates some darker theories. Some darker theories about what she might do with that gun.
Yeah.
And her instability of pointing at someone else. She might take someone else with her. It's a foreshadow to what you would see at the end of the film, you know, where she actually does that and does take her life with somebody else's, you know, like it's covered. That's the other thing. It's got there's some darkness to it, you know.
What I thought interesting too is how culturally different, you know, there's the element of human suffering and then this frustration with love and sexuality, but and if we're going to compare it with Sex, Lies, and the Videotape, you have where these topics are what the lies are. We hide behind them, and we're safe behind these lies. Where for Jules and Jim and Catherine, they're so open about what they're doing sexually, how they're thinking sexually. They're on the note. Like it's
really matter of fact.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm going to sleep with him now. Okay, I'm going to sleep with you now. I'm going to sleep with him now, and just so open about their open relationship that it's uncomfortable for us. Where we've been, you think you have this moral compass of like, okay, should she be doing that? Can she do that? And she doesn't care. She does that, but they're very open about it, and there's that honest feeling where you're just like, wow, I just wish, you know, society were a place where you could just talk about these darker things more openly. Whereas I think in our culture, it's just like, well, you don't talk about it. It happens, and it's happening, and it has happened, and it's going to still happen because it's part of human nature. Sexuality, sexual frustration is a part of human nature. And I think they're making a commentary about it with that film. And then with Sex, Lies, and the Videotape, there's this commentary on what what is the sexual norm? What is acceptable? What's not acceptable? What is a lie? What is truth? And I think there's that universal theme where you realize that, hey, the truth is what's cathartic. It's what we go to watch these films for. It's because we either don't want to be in that situation, or we've had that situation and have it repressed within us. And so now we can see that played out on the screen of how it plays out in different scenarios. And it's very rewarding. When I saw this, it was in film school, and I had no idea. Like, you can't relate to it because you know, you're not married, you're not in a relationship, deep relationship at the time. But then it's one of those films that I watched a long time ago, and then all of a sudden, over 30, 40 years later, you're like, oh man, that's what they're trying to say with this film. And so I think it's one of those films that is timeless and ageless, and it has very, it's in black and white, so you want to, okay, it's an old film. No, this is something you got to watch, you got to study and analyze, because it gives you one of those timeless insights into human nature, where back then it's just like now. And if you can hone in on these relationships, these human tragedies and feelings and emotions, it makes you powerful in the sense of being able to understand film and also to create films in your work.
On that same note, I think one of the more brilliant scenes showing that, exactly what you just described, was the scene where she comes out to Jim's house and drives that car just randomly through the parking lot. I just thought that was so interesting, just to show that scene where she's going every which way. She's aimless. She doesn't know what she wants. But that felt good to her. And then they talked about it the next day. I mean, I thought that was just so interesting into her character and what you're talking about. Just like the uncertainties of life, and maybe, showing that visually was
maybe they're trying to say that's her tragic flaw, is she doesn't know what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
At one moment it's this and that, and love is fleeting, and there are no rules to love. So it's like, if I want to love this person, then fine. If I want to love that person, even though I shouldn't, that person is in a relationship, they have a child, or it doesn't matter. I think that gets the best of her in the end, probably, where she is so torn between that it finally gets to her.
If you're looking at the comparable between the two films, also huge cultural divide between how the French view things and how Americans view things.
Oh, yes.
Huge.
And then also, if you're looking at the characters from Jules and Jim and the characters from Sex, Lies, and Videotape, what I find interesting comparatively is that I actually don't really root for any of them. In the same sense that I would go to a movie and like root for Rudy, and that's an extreme example, but like when I'm watching, and it doesn't mean I'm really rooting against him either. It's very observational. So I'm not really looking at, in Sex, Lies, and I'm not really looking at any of those three characters, four, as like protagonists. I'm not really going, I'm rooting for each. They're all flawed in my view, and then there's relatability too. So you go, oh well, that's me. You can kind of pinpoint or areas of that character that you go, I can relate to that. Yeah. But at no point am I going, I'm like Jules, or I'm like Jim, or I'm like Catherine, and so I'm not really rooting for him. But it still draws me in to want to watch it. Which I find I'm not sure how they do. That's a contrary position to take as a filmmaker. It's like, I'm going to go out and build all these characters, and none of them you may really love, but overall you're going to be intrigued. And it goes back to that observational human nature.
It's almost opposite. Like, you're frustrated with it because I don't root for them, but I'm like, well, why doesn't Jules get what he wants? And why doesn't Catherine get what she wants? Why doesn't Jim get what he wants?
See, and then
they all deserve that, but they don't get it.
my chauvinistic side goes, Catherine gets what she wants. She does whatever she wants to do.
That's true.
She goes and sleeps with every guy she wants to sleep with. And then I'm thinking, but at the same time, like, it's a weird, I don't know. I mean, she kind of does get what she wants.
Yeah.
And in Sex, Lies, and Videotape, I'm not even sure who's trying to get what they want. I mean, Peter Gallagher's character, immediately you go, in my mind, I go, okay, he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Because he's cheating on his wife. But if you're talking truths about marriage and relationships, sexuality is a part of that. So if you're getting that withheld, do you know what I mean? Mm. And I'm not condoning what he's doing, but then I'm going, you almost see, okay, well, he's a man. So human nature and biology calls for him to go and satisfy urges. Yeah. And so I'm not rooting for him, but at the same time, I'm looking at each character going, she's got flaws, he's got flaws. Yes, he's an asshole. She's a skank, because I look at her sister and I go, whore. Yeah. Because sleeping with her sister's husband. Yeah. So it's like this, but so none of those characters, and even Andie MacDowell's character, who initially I go, okay, here's someone I can root for. But as I kind of start to figure her out, she's like, there's a flaw within her too. So I don't really, and so it's a weird thing where none of them I'm really absolutely wanting to win. And that's weird that you spread the characters out like that, and we have nobody to really root for.
There's a theory that love is truly a force of nature. And so it's not they get what they want, but it returns to like a balance or an equilibrium where the characters, they go through these forces of nature. And then at the end, it's not what they wanted, but it's what it returns to. It's for Jules and Jim, it ends, it's tragic ending, but they were flirting with danger from the get-go, right? And so when it ends, you're not really surprised that it ends that way, right?
I also think the character, it's funny because you think about like Jules is always, not Jules, Jim is always the one. If you look at, there's a couple moments where that runs after her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When she's in the house with him, mm-hmm. when he first starts to go back and visit Jules and the family at their little cottage or whatever it is. And she's like, catch me. And she runs away. And the first person to jump up and run is Jim. But she's married to Jules.
Jules is like, yeah.
And he's just sitting there, and that his apathy is all telling, which is like, oh, he's already gone. He's checked out of whatever
it's happened
is going. And Jules runs after her, and in the moment he even says, oh, I wanted to sleep with her, but I withheld. And then of course later he does, right?
And I think he goes after her when she jumps into the river.
But he's the initial
the first one to
kind of, I mean, they both go down and you see the shots like helping her up, but like he's the one that initially kind of responds, reacts.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when she jumps in the car, and this is the question I have, because it's going back to this, like, why is Jim always, why did he jump in the car? What was the motivation for him to get in the car when she went all, was there a reason?
I mean, I think
because up to that point, he's always first mover.
Yeah.
And so now at the end, she goes, I'm getting it. She does her thing. She gets in the car, and the person to get in the car with her is Jim.
Well, I mean, she said,
I think she was tricking him, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she was tricking him.
There was that impromptu meeting at the theater, and they hadn't seen each other for a little bit. And she's like, hey, let's like catch up. Or I think she's just getting in the car to talk to her. And
well, didn't she say that I want to show you something?
Yeah, I want to show you something.
But she says his name. His name. I can't remember if she says his name specifically. Does she?
I don't think so. I think she.
Her intention was to continue to, because she knows she has Jules wrapped around her finger, and part of the love is to show.
Either she does. This is an interesting point, because either she does to a degree, or Jules is apathetic.
Yeah, he's at that point.
So at that point, he doesn't care
anymore. Yeah,
it's one of the two. I mean, or a mixture of both. Yeah. But I always thought it was interesting that Jim was the first one to always.
Yeah,
you know,
that suffering, almost that abuse of love, because Jules loves her so much. He's like, "You gonna go sleep with my best friend? Well, if it means I get to still love you, then go ahead."
Yeah,
I'm sure that's got to be painful to some degree, you know.
But see, he actually, and if you look at the tragic ending, right? Catherine and Jim die. And by the hand of Catherine and a steering wheel. And like Todd eloquently said, a Thelma and Louise type moment. They basically run off a bridge and that ends it. But there's a forewarning too, because Jules even says when Jim comes back, he warns her to be, or warns Jim to be careful. He says, "Be careful." So he kind of has, he's apathetic, but he's also, his character to me is a little more, I don't want to say maybe in a weird way logical and less what's the word when you respond to something quickly, impulsive. Jules is a little more
his threshold
back here and not as impulsive maybe as Jim is.
Is it ignorance or is it? I'm trying to relate it to that film, the Jennifer Lawrence film, Mama, where it's just the whole film is about suffering.
I missed that one.
Oh, that should be a future watch then. We'll talk about that later. But there's an element of through the whole film is the whole motivation is to cause suffering on a subject, and how much can you make a person suffer emotionally? Not like I guess physically too, but emotional suffering.
Like knowingly let them suffer.
Yeah, knowingly let them suffer, and then as the person who's suffering, what threshold do we have?
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden, because we have different thresholds of suffering, I think, and some can take abuse and suffering to a certain point, and others, they can live their whole lives with that. And this is a case where through most of their life, they're able to live through this type of relationship. And it's just, that was their life. For us, we can see elements of suffering and sexual frustration, but for them, this is my life.
Well, that once again, that kind of leads back to the cultural divide of Americans versus people, French.
Well, we know if Catherine had a videotape, she'd have got freaky. Of that, I have zero doubt.
What kind of leaning into that? Like, what were the overall thoughts on Sex, Lies, and Videotape? Yeah, it's an interest. They're actually these two films to me are perfect companions.
Yeah,
they are.
So, but speaking of it, like since we've covered a little bit, and we can go back to it, of course. But we've covered a little bit of Jules and Jim. What were the first impressions of Sex, Lies, and Videotape as a movie?
Quite frankly, I didn't like the film very much.
Well, that's the worst response you could ever give as a filmmaker. You have to expound.
Well, that's my start.
Okay.
I can respect it, but you got to defend it.
That's right. That's what I mean.
You got to defend it.
Dive in. Now you've opened your mouth.
And here's a little bit of honesty as well. Is I really can't stand Andie MacDowell.
What?
No, she's awful.
Green card.
She's awful.
Oh, jeez.
So it's hard for me to watch films with her, and exception being Groundhog Day for whatever reason. I'm okay with it.
And Multiplicity.
She's good now.
Brandon is now exiled from the podcast
because I don't like Andie MacDowell.
Yeah,
she was like me,
she's like the all-American Southern girl.
Screenhead crush. Okay, so when you were younger, because that was like mine when I was younger. So when you were younger, what was like a girl crush actress that you had?
Well, define the age because
teenage years.
Teenage years.
Because Andie MacDowell was in her prime when I was in.
Probably.
I don't know how you can't like Andie MacDowell, like cute Southern girl. Like, what is this guy's problem? Plus, you never defended your answer. Your answer was weak.
I mean, I know.
No, I'm just trying to get a point.
Let answer T's question, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
I was setting you up there.
Yeah, we're picking on you now.
Let's see. That would have been 90s. So, I know who it was. Rachel Lee Cook. My God.
Yeah. See?
Beautiful. Also, I think her name is pronounced Soleil Moon Frye. You know, like Rachel. Oh, she's gorgeous. She's all that. Did you ever see that?
Yes. Unfortunately.
Dude, I know. I mean, the rest of the movie is terrible, but her visual candy.
More than once, because cable seems to stream it every other weekend.
With our 3 listeners, we can do our first poll here.
We got
Rachel Lee Cook or Andie MacDowell. Okay.
Good
Come on.
question.
Good. Like,
I'll put it up on the Facebook page
All right.
as a poll.
Leave it your
And
comments.
I get to put photos
we'll
of
lose
both of
all
them in their
three.
prime. So Andie in her prime and Rachel in her prime.
Fair enough. And number 3, might as well put a third one. I mean, we can't both
No,
be
I
Andie
like.
MacDowell.
I'm with T. I'll go with it. I mean, she wasn't my crush per se, but I'm all about Andie MacDowell.
Okay, well, who's
Cute
your
Southern
crush?
girl. That's not the question. The question is,
why didn't you like Sex?
why
Lives
didn't you
Video?
like? Well, I don't. That's fine. I don't care that you didn't like it.
Why?
What I want to know is, you got to go deeper. You can't just come into this saying I didn't like it. Then
Well,
you're
I was
really
about
fired
to
from the
start. I was
podcast.
about to start,
Just
and then
go.
we just
Don't
went
defend
off on a
yourself.
tangent.
Just go.
Yeah, you're knocking
done with
Andie
tangents.
MacDowell and Sex Lives Videotape. That's
I
like,
really think it came down just to almost what you kind of touched on, just the unsympathetic character. I mean, I like a film where there's at least somebody or something to kind of grab a hold of and
Okay.
resonate with.
Does that hold true then? Now, did you like Jules and Jim?
Now, I did.
Okay.
And the reason I did is it wasn't necessarily the characters I was rooting for, but it was those two guys' friendship that I
You could get behind
that I
it.
could get behind, and I wanted that friendship to endure.
So there was a story arc to it for you between the two guys.
Yes.
Were they homosexual? Did
if
they
any-
ever?
No, I mean not specifically in the
They talk
film.
about it right out in the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
When they come out of that play. They're talking about homosexuality and things like that.
If anything, they were sexually fluid. Maybe there's kind of didn't
I got you.
really care either way. I mean, bi maybe.
Okay.
I mean, and
But you
again,
could get behind that, part of your, you didn't like Sex, Lies, and Videotape. You didn't feel like you could get behind anybody or any story arc that meant something for you.
Yeah.
But in Jules and Jim, you got Jules and Jim, and
I got
you
Jules
got
and
their
Jim.
relationship,
Mhm.
and that progressed enough for you to attach yourself to it. Okay.
I mean, James Spader's character, I probably
You
A
can
little
relate
bit.
to the impotence, like that.
I can relate to the impotence, and I don't know. I've always had a place in my heart for that drifter,
I still like
type.
Brandon.
Whatever. I just didn't really enjoy the film, and I think it was just those and it's not only because of Andie MacDowell, but just I had
think-
nothing to grasp a
I
hold
think,
of.
Yeah, where you're at right now, because you're still young, watching it. Me old, like I said, when
Me
I watched,
old
when
as
I
well.
watched,
Oh.
when I watched,
Oh wait,
when I watched Jules and Jim for the first time, I couldn't process it. I liked it, cinematically,
Mhm.
the filmmaking techniques from that point of view, but just trying to understand the deeper emotions, I didn't have enough life experience to do so. So I think, flash forward 20, 30 years from now, you may understand Sex, Lies, and Videotape a little bit more.
Now you're what, like 5 years older than me?
No, I'm way older.
No, you're not.
Yeah,
I'm 41.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm 45. 44.
He's
hey,
T, old man T over here.
40, though, everything, like I said,
It changes.
it changes. It changes drastically. And
well, I don't know how that feels. So,
Now listen here, Sonny.
spring chicken hair.
come tell me how it feels, guys. Let me know.
I think if you take, what are the opposites of Sex, Lies? So you have.
Let me. Sorry, I wanted to say one thing before you go into that about the age thing. I think it is an interesting point, but what I find interesting as a fact is that this film, written and directed by Steven Soderbergh at the age of 29.
Mm. That is interesting.
So I'm
Deep
saying,
understanding.
because I think I see what you're saying, and I actually agree with it. Although I'm the youngest of the trio here, but in film study, I'm not the youngest, and so being 29 years old and writing and directing that type of film with that type of language and that type of context and that kind of nuance, to me, deserves, like, that's a lot of respect as a filmmaker. Like, whoa,
I'll grant that. Sure.
I don't think I could write something that nuanced at you know what I mean, at age 29.
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt your point, but I thought that kind of tied in because the filmmaker was young when he made it.
I think that understanding you're talking about is the tragic elements. If you take the opposites, so, you know, I think in the film they're treating sex as like this dirty secret. You know, it's lust, it's passion. That's the side of that we're conveying on the screen. So the opposite side is true love. So instead of sex, you replace that with love. Instead of lies, you replace that with truth. Instead of a videotape, you replace that with reality. Because in reality, the tape is the truth about sex.
Mm-hmm.
So follow me on this. If you watch the tape, which usually when we watch tapes, it's porno, it's a created lie, right? It's this, you create this illusion, and that's entertainment. And that's what a videotape represents. You watch a movie, it's an illusion of disbelief. In this movie, it's the truth. People sit down and they confess. And that's very cathartic. There's this relief from saying, this is my sexual frustration in life. And for everybody, they're suffering from a sexual frustration and they're lying about it. And whether we can relate to that or not, I think each one of them has a special, unique lie that comes to light through the ultimate of lies, which is the videotape. So the tape has this symbolic representation of truth when it's the opposite. So I think the genius behind it is, you know, you take this superficial sex as a passion and lust, and you're able to dissect it even more. You're able to take lies and find truth through the lies, because they're all lying about something, right? And you're able to find the truth, get to the truth, and that's through this vehicle, which is this tape, recorded tapes represent lies, but you're able to find the truth. And that's what I found fascinating, is that you watch the tape and all of a sudden you find the truth. When as before, you know, you can make your own tape and you can make a lie. But, you know, you have a guy who's had a Graham where he messes up with a girlfriend and he's trying to repair that. He's sexually dysfunctional because of his failure. And he finds truth in the videotapes of videotaping girls who share their true experiences and sexual frustration, sexual lives on tape. You have Andie MacDowell, who it seems like she's the strong female protagonist, but she has her own sexual frustration and flaws, and ultimately, you know, cheats on her husband as a form of revenge, which is sad. It's her fall there. But she comes to some kind of truth through the tape. And then you have John, who's just, you know, this jackass.
He's a playboy.
He's a playboy. Rich playboy.
He's a lawyer, rich playboy who sleeps with his wife's sister.
And so that is not unusual. That's really a Greek tragedy there, where you have this high political figure of high social class and wealth, whose fatal flaw causes them to fall from that grace. And it's what causes the tragedy in their life, and through that there's the catharsis, which is the close, where he finds out, hey, I guess I'm not okay with it. I mean, I don't know why, you know, he's okay with it. I guess Andie MacDowell's okay. Hey, you can bang my sister from now on, and I'll bang your best friend, and that's somehow, you know, the balance at the end there. And I'm not okay with it, but I understand that that's how they deal with it, and they get through it.
And the ending shot is Andie MacDowell and James Spader together.
Yeah, they're like, okay.
So it's almost an interesting thing, because it's like you've gone through all this great interweaving of like the titles of the film, the sex, what it, like you had described, like what it means underneath, and how the sex ties to the lies and the lies tie to the videotape, and it all interweaves. And then it leaves you with this somewhat normalcy, or what we might consider, or I would speak for myself, what I would consider what to be normal, which is two people now, quote unquote, after all the turmoil, now finding themselves together and quote unquote happy, or You know,
What I did like, I didn't like it and I did it. What I did like though is that
It's an
they're
interesting
able
one.
to come to the truth for themselves
Mhm.
and accept it.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, we repress it,
Yes.
and we'll continue to repress it our whole lives.
I
Because
love
that's what
when
you're taught to do, right?
it's John, right? Played by Peter Gallagher.
Yeah.
I love when he it is as evil as he is, or as evil as we build him up because we know he's cheating.
Mhm.
You know, at the end when he sees the videotape that's been created,
it's his comeuppance, right?
but he also accepts it in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like
true.
when he sees it, when he's already there, he's already punched James Spader. He grabs
Locks
the
him out of
tape
the
because
house.
he's like, "You made the tape."
Yeah.
Locks him out of the house so that he can watch the tape. And as he watched the tape, she's doing her thing, and then they turn it off, and of course, it's insinuating that they've slept together.
Yeah.
He accepts it who he is. He doesn't look. He walks back out. The only thing he says though is he walks out and he's accepted the fact that now his wife has cheated on him. She's basically done to him what he's done to her, and he accepts it. He's not as angry as he was when he first arrived, and he walks out on the porch and he looks at James Spader's character, and he tells him, "Oh, but he does throw the one last little dagger in, which is like, by the way, I slept with Elizabeth, the character who James Spader loved before this whole thing came down."
I saw that he's also trying to comfort Graham and kind of get some closure.
Oh, really?
With Graham,
Okay.
because he's trying to tell Graham she wasn't a saint.
Yeah.
She wasn't.
He does literally say that.
She lied to you too.
Yeah.
And
You're
that
not the only
helps
one.
Graham with his issues that he's
Good
dealing
point.
with.
Yeah.
Because Graham's like, "Oh, I cheated. I was so bad to this perfect girl." He's like, "Nah, she wasn't perfect. I slept with her." You know.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's what ultimately. Again, there's that phrase. You know, the true.
So in
shall
some
set you
way,
free.
he kind of redeems himself in a weird way, which is like, let me help. Like, I got angry. It is what it is, but let me let you live on past this thing that you've been holding.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, look, this person that you've been holding it on is not the greatest person you thought they were.
And to T's point, had it not been for the truth of that videotape, he would have never come to that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the
that truth
vehicle.
would have never been revealed.
Would have never been revealed.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an interesting scene when he finally sat down and watched the tape and listened to those truths and just kind of like, okay. Yeah. I thought that was.
No matter what you believe or what your moral compass, if you watch these films, I guarantee, I promise, whoever's listening, you suffer from something sexually. I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I know you're human, right? So you have a sexual frustration about something. So there's going to be a connection on, hey, as comfortable as it is to talk about, or maybe you're French and you don't care about what you say, but you could talk about it openly, which I wish we all could. In America,
agree.
You're like you can't talk. It's taboo, right? You can't talk about anything, and so you know that. But that's how I know that anybody who watches these films, you're suffering from something sexually. It's repressed, and then all of a sudden it becomes up there on the truth as film. And you're able to see another person go through this suffering and see how they deal with it. And somehow I'm okay with it now because I've seen how it plays out, good or bad. I think that's the power that the medium has is that it can take you on this journey sitting in a chair. And at the end of it, you're back in the chair and you're like, okay, yeah, so maybe I should talk about what I'm feeling more, or maybe it helps me understand the situation. Because, there's people who have gone through horrible suffering because of their choices with sex and love, and they've made right decisions or wrong decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And you see firsthand how debilitating that can be. And that's reality. That is truth. And so all of a sudden it's in this film, in a rom-com or a Greek love tragedy. You got these Romeo and Juliet themes through film, and we watch it and we're like, okay, I will pay to see people suffer, and do stupid things so that I can feel better, a little bit better, and think differently about maybe some of the things I do. These are deep things. They deal with suicide.
They're super deep.
Cheating, sleeping with your
you're dealing and homicide, murder.
Yeah.
In Jules and Jim.
Yeah.
I think you could take these two films and compare and contrast them and use them in a sociology or a psychology department at a university.
You could easily.
You
Definitely.
could.
Absolutely.
I don't think initially our intent was that, but when you shot out the email for us to watch Jules and Jim on top of Sex Lies, when you watch them together, the compare and contrast is fantastic to talk about the psychology, the sociology, the culture divides, the culture differences, the taboos, the dark subjects, all that stuff. And there's catharticism and there's therapeutic kind of reasoning behind each of these films when you watch them together.
Because you're it's one of those films. They're both one of those films where you're tired. You're physically tired and kind of drained after you watch it. Because
they're not go and watch, and it's not Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
No.
No. Right.
They're not those types of movies.
Those types of movies. And I think I was saying this before. Where Sex Lies and the Videotape ends is where Jules and Jim begin in progression.
Another good tie-in between the two.
Because in Jules and Jim, they're so open. It's like we play this game, of Fool's Poker, where everybody sees the card they're playing. And I guess in American culture, we hide those cards. Like we're afraid of them. There's shame involved with it, right? So if you know what I'm thinking sexually, or my frustration sexually, or what I've done, mistakes I've made sexually, that is taboo, that is shameful. Whereas in 1960 France, they're like, hey, we understand, we're truthful, at least right or wrong, moral or immoral, I understand who I am. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. And so I'm able to live a life where I can understand that. And to me, that's just so fascinating. Like they get it. They understand they're human and they're going to make mistakes. And so they'll live life. And it's still tragic, right? They're still, I'm not discounting any kind of responsibility or result coming from their actions. They're fully accountable for what their actions are, but they don't lie about them. They understand.
And I'm kind of the mindset of the previous in Jules and Jim. If you look at 1960s France, extremely progressive and open. Like you said, right or wrong, immoral or moral, extremely open and truthful about whatever it is. And then they don't, at least in Catherine's case in the film, she doesn't care about what other people think.
Yeah.
No.
And that, to me, I think that's a good mindset overall to have.
That is the kind of female protagonist I would like to see in film. This is the most recent Avenger films. I saw, my wife included, they all stood up and clapped when these window portals opened from Doctor Strange and all the women come back, the protagonists, and they all band up together. All the female superheroes get together and they kick ass, right? And we're supposed to be like, oh, finally, women have their, they're strong and stuff like that. And I think it's good and bad. I mean, I think that it's pretty sad commentary that we have to cheer for a scene like that because it's never existed before in the past.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't want my kids to see that because I don't want them to see that when life gets hard, if you're a woman, these windows are going to open up and someone's going to save you.
And in Catherine, the thing, I'm going back to rounding it out to what Brandon was saying before about Catherine. She's like, and this is paraphrasing, it's not the exact line of dialogue, but she basically says, I don't want anybody to save me. I don't want anybody to change me. I don't want anybody to understand me. I am who I am, and I'm happy to be that person, and I go on. And I don't care about we go back to this phrase, but the external factors that are going on around me, I don't care.
And I think that's why I couldn't understand it.
Which is great.
And I felt bad for being a guy, but I loved Thelma and Louise because they're just like...
Because they don't give a shit.
They don't give a shit. And you're like,
for themselves, though. Not
that's
because...
awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And those are the kind of characters I think we need to see in film. One thing Greek tragedy has followed the male... character and his heroic journey, and I think they're coming up with studies and theories about the female journey, which is different. But we need to see that one. We need to see a female protagonist, and not have to clap when they do what they want to do.
I can't think of, and I'm not, it's about watching a lot of movies and being versed enough to know and pull from the archives about, hey, what's out there that we could make a comparison to nowadays, more contemporary. You talked about Thelma and Louise, but then like and so, yeah, it would be nice to see some other films, not for the same way that you're talking about maybe in the Marvel universe, but for, something more along the lines that you see with Catherine in Jules and Jim.
Like maybe Ex Machina. Did you guys see that one?
Oh yeah.
With the robotic.
Yeah, that's got that in there. There's one actually with Jennifer Lawrence in it, and it's called Winter's Bone. And that has a little bit of her not just caring what anybody thinks, and it's not the same.
Is that the Peter Jackson one? Mm-mm. I'm getting that mixed up.
No, it's directed by a female director, and I wish I could remember her name. It's right here. Pop up. There's the name. But good point. Like, if these two films are give me give me your overview, your rating of Jules and Jim, Brandon. Where do you rate this film?
I mean, there's a lot of aspects I'd still like to. I mean, just a really
aside
quick
from others,
but visually,
further study. I mean, it takes more than one passing.
Definitely,
I get it, but
there was a lot of visual things I thought was really cool about this film. I loved that they showed the cremation process, like the actual crushing of the bones. I mean, that to me was like,
oh yeah,
it was such a. I mean, could you do that in 1966? Apparently, I mean, you couldn't do that in American cinema.
I don't know if it's a religious. But cremation is part of their beliefs.
Correct, but showing that actual process and showing both bodies going in and showing the actual bones being crushed into powder and just
was there a reason behind it?
That's what I was trying to figure out. I'm just like there
is symbolically.
I think so. I think I'm asking Brandon if he knows.
I'll get my take.
I'll go back to Todd. I'm putting Brandon on the spot.
Yeah.
At first, I mean, I've only seen it once, but I mean, what it said to me was. I mean, just kind of going back to her character. I mean, I'm not sure whose bones those were. I guess I kind of defaulted to hers, that they were her bones. But because it kind of ties into the very last bit of the film, is that she wanted this to her to be scattered in the wind, but it was against regulations, and then it just ends. I mean, it's like.
But that is the ultimate fuck you. That's like, right?
Yeah.
She lives to the even after death.
Yeah.
She's immortalized by believing her belief system is holding true. And Jules makes sure, because he knows that she wouldn't follow any rules. She would be rebellious to the end. And even after death, he's like, okay, to honor her, she lives on because this is illegal and I shouldn't do it, but this is who she was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
the wind goes wherever it wants to go, does whatever it wants to do.
Exactly. It's direct symbolism to that character. Yeah, for sure.
So I guess showing that was kind of leading up to that moment is what I'm saying. Because without that, I don't think it'd have the same impact.
I saw it more spiritual, like mythological. Like she's like taking her place at that God level, where this is her physical body, but like everything she believed in and everything about her, it becomes this like, this whole new universe in the sky, spiritual life. I think it's back to the theory of love is a natural force, so she returns to nature, ultimately, and we, as in the matter of technology and understanding and our theories and experience with love, we still can't understand it. It's so complex. And I think that's the beauty of this French film, and that's the beauty of Sex Lies, the videotape.
It's undefinable.
And you don't. I want to say you don't understand as much about love at the beginning as you do at the end. You're probably more confused at the end. But the realization is that yes, love is that complex.
But it intellectually stimulates you, and you start breaking it down, and at least thinking about how to compartmentalize it to whatever it means to you.
Yeah.
And that's always that to me is something I've always loved. about movies, which is like if they can intellectually stimulate you into thinking, oh, and start getting you to think about complexities and then assign them to your own journey in whatever you're doing, that's always an interesting setup or platform for a movie to do. So what's your
9.5?
Ooh, he's going in. He's coming in hot.
For which one?
Jules and Jim. We're doing Jules and Jim. Brandon's going with 9.5.
I really liked it, and I want to watch it again just to let a lot of those things.
All right, T?
It was good.
T, what do you got on Jules and Jim?
The first time I watched Jules and Jim, it was for a class. Had to study it. It was pretty low, so it'd be like an 8. But now, after thinking about it for years.
Well, let's be clear. An 8's not necessarily low, is it?
For my standards.
Okay.
I'm at 10. It's one of those iconic films that I think 1,000 years from now they're going to still be watching Jules and Jim and be like, yeah, we still don't understand what love is, and that has power. I think when a film could be ageless and timeless in the sense of the understanding of human emotion and character, then the filmmakers got it right.
So we got a 9.5. We got a 10. Yeah. And I'm similar to you in that, not in the rating, but I did watch it in my undergrad, and this was 15, 16, 17 years ago. And I don't remember a ton from it from that first viewing. Mm-hmm. So when and you're obviously a lot younger too, so you just don't see things with the same lens that you do as you get older. With that said, on the rewatching, a lot of complexities and a lot of things. And this is a film by François Truffaut, who is a filmmaker everybody to some extent knows and studies and kind of understands. He has one of my favorite quotes, and I think it sums up this movie probably almost to a T. And I used to show this in a class because I would ask students what film is. I would say, what is film? And of course, there's different answers because for everybody, it's different. Film's not the same thing for everybody. But then I would show the quote from Truffaut. And the quote from Truffaut, which was very simple, at least we could all relate to. So even if film was different to us in different ways, his quote was, film is truth every 24 frames. So his concept is everything I'm doing, I'm putting together, and we go to, truth. And we talk about Sex, Lies, and Videotape and truth. And we talk about Jules and Jim. And it's just this openness of honesty and truth and whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And his concept of film is truth every 24 frames really resonates with me. And so I always share that. Now, as far as the rating, similarly to you, Brandon, I got to go do another rewatching because it's been a long time and I've been stepped away from it. On the most recent watching, a lot of things got flooded into my mind. It got me intellectually stimulated and got me thinking about my own process and my own journey in life and just different, different relationships and how things operate. But right now, I'll go with, it's funny. It still doesn't resonate with me as other movies do. So I'll go 9.3. Just because, and that may change, that rating may get bumped up, but it's definitely something that everybody needs to watch. So let's jump into, with by the way, I do that with much love and respect for Truffaut. Okay. Rest in peace. Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
7.9.
7.9. You want to give any additional information, or are you already? I didn't like it.
I
didn't like it. Or Andie MacDowell.
I didn't like Andie MacDowell. No.
The worst.
I appreciate what he was trying to do, but it just did not resonate with me. It just. I need something, and it just didn't have it. There were some interesting parts and some interesting things. James Spader is amazing in everything he's ever been in. This is no exception.
By the way, real quickly, just on that note, his performance is great.
It is. I agree. If you have, but if you look at just his performance, as an individual, yeah,
I
can't. If it wasn't for that, it'd be a
resonates
5.
pretty strong. You gave it 2. You gave it 2 plus extra points just for
Just
Spader.
for James Spader, yeah.
And you deducted 3 or 2 or 3 points because it has Andie MacDowell.
Because Andie MacDowell.
I got you. Performance matters. T, what are you at on Sex, Lies, and Videotape?
Andie
Recap.
MacDowell, 10.
10-1, yeah.
10 points.
I agree with T. I go
movie,
10 on MacDowell.
I'd say 9.
Okay. You want to recap it?
Uh,
For where it's coming in with the 9? I mean, you did a
Starting
great
the
job
9,
with
I
it, but
think
I just, the recap overall.
the elements of choosing, sex to symbolize passion and lust, and then lies to symbolize truth, and a videotape to symbolize reality of what all of these things really are. That's so hard to do.
Yeah.
When you say videotape or film love, like there's so many things you could show, and to get it right to where the audience is starting to think about these things, these are concepts, and Soderbergh is able to bring these to life visually. Again, that's where I put the 9, is like he took these deep, complex things that we think about and we analyze, and he put it in a physical, visual thing for us to watch and watch it unfold. And it's tragic, but again, it finds this balance at the end. I didn't like the ending because the ending's truthful. It's like they get, with it, and in my,
Everybody
Hollywood-
just leaves the same way they started, in a
that
sense.
Hollywood
Like,
ending.
there's no...
I'm like, if someone said, my sister or something like that, wouldn't be as cool, And so I'm basing that on my own comfort zone, I guess. But I think that's what it does. It takes whatever you think about sex, lies, and reality, and it kind of shakes it, rattles it. And that's the fun, that's when we go on a roller coaster, we're not going to go on a roller coaster and say, hey, that was all fun. It's like, I crap my pants and I peed my pants, and that's why I loved it. I didn't do that during Sex, Lies, and Videotape. That's a topic.
Sounds like
This watching, he didn't.
I'm revealing too much there.
T needs a diaper when he sees movies.
I am going to actually go to a straight 8-0 because I love the title. I think it's one of the greatest titles I've ever heard.
Okay.
I
You
mean,
were intrigued enough by...
I was
You were more intrigued by the title
title.
than the actual movie.
Well,
I mean,
it
you still
sucked me
came in with an 8. That's not a...
No.
Look, you could come in with a 5. I'm not going to beat you up on it. These are your
my opinions.
decisions.
I'm not-
Not like...
And again, James Spader put it up.
Spader
and I love
put
the
it-
title. I
so
think it's
without
a great title.
Spader, it's at a 6 is in your...
That's correct, sir.
Okay, because you were giving Spader 2 points, just to be clear.
You have a bigger crush on Spader than you do Andie MacDowell.
Yeah,
100%.
For sure.
I want him to read a bedtime story to me every night to put me to sleep.
He does have that kind of natural...
Fair enough, yeah.
The natural nuance of just, you want to listen to everything he says.
Oh, he commands the
He's
screen.
kinda got
He
that.
commands the screen every
In
time.
a very
he's on.
casual way, though.
Yeah.
It's not
It's not a big presence.
dominating
No.
factor. It's
It's-
just, hey, I'm here.
It's a soft.
Listen to
yeah.
me. And he's got the presence. Yeah,
He
for
does
sure.
have
He's a great actor. I thought the movie, so for me, I'm always interested, similarly, like I look at the movies like I did with Jules and Jim, and I of course, just look at the filmmakers too. I always kind of go like, what's the tie-in and who's putting all this together? Who's that visionary behind this thing? So like we were saying before, I mean, I'm blown away that the guy was 29 years old when he made this movie. This one, I was constantly engaged the whole time. So I was a little different. I was thinking and processing and going over things in my mind and kind of figuring out who to root for, and then figuring out, there's not a whole lot to root for, and then in terms of just individual characters. But no matter what, the whole time I was intrigued. So I'm actually sticking with T on this one. I'm going to come in right at a 9 as well. I'll come in at a flat 9.
Now, had you seen it before?
Years ago. So
Okay.
this was a rewatching after maybe a decade, like maybe 10
Okay.
plus years ago I had seen it. So this one, and it's funny because in that 10-year time, for me, it's like a lot, just in life for people, a lot of things happen. So in that 10-year time, there's a lot of growth, and there's a growth spurt of just like understanding things and looking at things with different ways. So this comes in at a 9. I think Soderbergh is coming out the gates for a first time director, like just kind of in awe. And I'm always kind of blown away at these guys that find a way to make something like this that has the complexities that it does. And shake it up. And I like that you use the word rattle, because for me, like he's making a movie and this is a good tie-in, in a lot of ways. If you look at his track record and his portfolio since this time, like he's an American independent filmmaker. So aside from you get your Oceans franchise, but beyond that, like if you look at most of his films, they're a little more independent. They're a little more visceral. They're not like big studio films. And I was kind of doing some research on him, and he's very influenced from the French New Wave, which is Truffaut and Godard and all these guys. So he's and I wouldn't know unless we talked to him, but he's pulling in some kind of influence from these French directors. And so just as a happenstance, we happened to watch these two films, and I think they tie in nicely together.
They really do.
And so I give it a 9 on Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Did you see that mosaic that he filmed here? It was an HBO
Soderbergh?
Soderbergh.
Yeah.
Actually, I went up and day played once as a PA and once as an extra with my daughter, and watching him work was really interesting.
Tell me about it real quick.
So very minimal lighting, very minimal.
He DP'd it himself too.
He did.
Yeah, he does a lot of his own. He does most of his own work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen a crew move so fucking fast in my life. I mean,
I love that. Though.
It was just
There's something I get excited about that.
It was fantastic to watch him work, because I mean we were blowing through pages. I mean we must have shot 12 pages easily.
12
easily. I mean and on top of that, this was a kind of a not a choose your own adventure, but kind of something like that. He was doing something with HBO with their app, trying to do some kind of interactive. So not only was he blowing through pages, he was going through alternate takes of the same scene.
So we want to get this direction, this direction, this direction, this direction,
and then swap character. It was,
and he's just DPing the whole thing, directing the whole thing. See, I love that. That's what I love about
that set.
Yeah, that's
and it wasn't stressful. It wasn't stressful at all. Like, because he commanded that.
It's a thing where it
trickles down.
Not being
100%.
there, but I get what you're saying, which is like you're on set, and basically this is a guy that knows what he wants, and it's not fidgety, and it's not like, hey, what's happening? What are we doing next? What's going on? Why are we taking so long? It's like, I want from the get-go all the way through the day. It's like this done.
Yeah, I don't think we ever did more than 3 or 4 takes on a single setup. I mean, it was amazing.
I love that.
Oh, so did I. It was amazing to watch.
I think that's a reflection back on this film, in the sense that, you've got a first-time director, young, he puts it together. And whether you like the film or you don't, I think going back to Jules and Jim, both of these films, at least to some level as filmmakers, they deserve respect.
Oh, 100%.
Right. So I think that's the thing with the two movies. So,
and with knowing he was 29 at the point, I mean,
still blows my mind, because I'm like, how did he write it? Because even if you didn't love the performances or you didn't like some of the actors, the dialogue is very mature.
Oh,
so how do you write that dialogue
when you're not mature?
When you're not really mature, you're 4 years past your frontal lobe being developed. I'm just saying. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
I'll tell you when my lobe develops. I'm still waiting for that.
T needs his lobe developed.
It's going to happen.
We're going to lead it back to that. We're going to end on that. Okay.
End on
that's better.
T's lobes.
Did I say lobes?
T wants to develop his lobes.
Lobe.
So take that for what it's
Frontal
worth.
lobe.
Tame Aperture signing off. Brandon Richardson.
Bye.
Todd Maitani. Gabe Vienendahl. Sex, Lies, Videotape. Jules and Jim. Go watch it. Peace out.
Open the pod bay doors, Cal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.